Hi there. I'm so happy you're here. You were probably expecting some slides. I know most webinars start out that way. And then you get some kind of useful stuff, and then the best stuff is at the end, and then there's big sales pitch. I don't want to do that. I'm not a salesperson, and I don't think that's the best use of your time. So I thought what we would do is first give you the two biggest takeaways that you're going to get in this webinar. So best stuff first, along with a special offer that we have for you if you want to try Tailwind. Okay, so takeaway number one, create great content. I bet you're doing that already, right? So creating blog posts, adding new products all the time, that's going to help you tremendously on Pinterest. And we're going to talk about why that is and how you can get the most out of your content, because that's a lot of work. Number two is being consistent on Pinterest. So pinning consistently rather than pinning 70 times in an afternoon, pin 10 to 12 times a day, every day. Easiest way to do that is to use a scheduler like Tailwind. So you could figure out theoretically when is the best time for you to pin for the best follower engagement, which is really important, and we will talk about that in a bit. But Tailwind can do that for you. And then you don't have to sit in front of your computer and pin manually. You can have your content planned out to go out at the best times for engagement. It's going to make a huge difference for you. So the special offer is 2 months free. When we decided to do some of these webinars, I thought we really need something special, right? Something you can't get somewhere else. And this is it. So it's only good for webinar attendees, and it's only good for 3 days. It will expire. So grab it now. You don't actually have to upgrade today in order to use your offer. So what you would need to do is to click on the call to action and then get your free trial and then claim the discount by clicking on that second link. It's going to walk you through it better than I could here. So go ahead and pause if you want to. Take care of that. One less thing to think about, because we have a lot of things to think about when it comes to Pinterest marketing. So get that done, then come on back, and we will talk about how to use Pinterest to market your online store. I'm excited to get into it. See you in a minute. Okay, you ready? Let's go. This is what we're going to learn: understanding and benefiting from Pinterest potential, building and refreshing our profiles, best practices to get our content out there, tools and tips for pinning and image creation, as well as just a little bit about Pinterest advertising. This is me. I am the content marketing manager at Tailwind, and I tend to talk about organic and promoted pins a lot because I've seen what it can do for businesses of all different kinds. Oftentimes when someone says, I'm going to make this the year of Pinterest, I'll say, well, why? Why now? It's been around a while. And they'll say, well, I was looking at my Google Analytics and I noticed how much traffic I'm getting from Pinterest, and we don't even pin there. So the great news is that you can have success on Pinterest even if you don't pin there. The better news is that you can have more if you do. So this is kind of a scary little graph here, and it is showing the share of social visits that came from Facebook from the beginning of 2016 to the end of 2017. They fell from 31% to 18% of those social visits to your website. Maybe you felt something like that. In that same time period, though, the share of social visits from Pinterest went from 4.5% to over 7.5%. Now, still in this graph, they are not even close to what Facebook is sending. But here's the interesting part. That was before Facebook said, hey, business pages, we're not going to show your content to as many people. So this graph that we look at is probably going to look a lot more dramatic come a year from now. But there's good news. The good news is that Facebook isn't the only place we can get our content distributed. And that's what Kath found out. Kath was a content creator, and she left her full-time job as a marketer and saw her monthly Pinterest views grow from 7,000 to 100,000 in just a couple of months. And what that meant for her, and what that can mean for you, is that her blog traffic increased from 100 increased 191% in just 1 month. So if you can imagine what that could do for your business, yeah, it's pretty exciting. Ilna, she gained 4.8 thousand Pinterest followers in just a couple of months, and she wasn't even trying that hard. And what that did for her is helped her course sales and affiliate income go up, which obviously had a lot to do with increased traffic. Then we had Natalie. She was a nurse. She founded Love and Paper Flowers and saw that her Pinterest views grew to over 60,000 in just a couple of months. But what that meant for her is that it just exploded her email list. And as an online retailer, you know that your email has a very high conversion rate compared to other kinds of marketing. So Pinterest can absolutely feed into that part of your business as well. The next one. Oh, hey, that's you. You're going to be the very next success story. So let's get started. First step is kind of realizing what is out there for your business on Pinterest. Realizing that it's not a social network. So people use Pinterest as a solitary destination. There are 200 million of us actively using Pinterest every single month. And what we do with it is we use it as a place to become our best selves, to create our best lives. It's not to curate the best version of our lives for other people's benefit, right? So Instagram, Facebook, great sites. They can also work for your business, but it's a completely different approach, which is important to realize if you're going to make it work for you. The best way to do that is to use it yourself. And what you're going to find likely is that you're doing more searching than anything else. That is typical. So search is responsible for more on-site activity than anything else pinners are doing. There are 2 billion searches a month. People are not browsing. Generally speaking, they are not going to a profile and checking out the boards and the pins on those boards. They are searching Pinterest as a whole, which if you're new to Pinterest, should be of comfort to you, because it means that there is a spot for you. Pinners are planning. Sometimes they're planning 3 months ahead of time. It's really amazing. If you go on Pinterest in July, you're going to see your home feed kind of overrun with Thanksgiving pins. What? That seems really early, but that's the way pinners are. So thinking about your content creation, it needs to come a little bit earlier, or maybe a lot earlier for Pinterest than you're used to. But that's good news, because 93% of people on Pinterest are planning purchases, and 76% of them are saving items to purchase later. So let's make sure that yours are among them. We can do that no matter how small or unknown you may feel at this point, because 97% of searches are unbranded, which means people who are using Pinterest are very open-minded. They don't typically go to Pinterest to search for blue Nike sneakers. No, they are instead searching for ideas like shoes to wear to a summer wedding. Probably not Nike sneakers. The point is that they are very open to discovery, and you can reach them a lot earlier in that decision-making process, meaning that even the smallest of online retailers have a chance to be found on Pinterest if they know what to do, which you will. Pinterest is great for finding brand new customers, so who couldn't use more new customers? 72% of pinners have said that Pinterest has introduced them to a new brand or service, and the same number or percentage, 72%, say that Pinterest inspires them to shop when they aren't even looking for anything. If you use Pinterest at all for yourself, you probably know that to be true for you as well. Here's an interesting thing in your Pinterest analytics. Now, if you go into Audience Insights and you switch over to where it says All Pinterest Users, that's where you're going to see this data for every single user of Pinterest. Very, very cool. So you're going to see what's most popular on Pinterest, and it's home and garden, design, DIY, and crafts, right? No big surprise. If you click on the category, you can break down into these smaller categories of, okay, what are the specific interests people are into? You're likely going to see yours in there. So looking at the most popular categories related to e-commerce or online selling would be things like fashion, food and drink, entertainment, and beauty. Now, even if you don't see yourself listed there, there is still a spot for you in those 2 billion monthly searches. The people using Pinterest, 70% of US moms are using Pinterest. Pinterest is still predominantly used by women. That difference is biggest in the US. 1 in 3 US dads are using Pinterest, but the audience on Pinterest is over 50% outside the US. So their behaviors are a little bit different, but it really opens us up to a whole new world of new customers. People are using Pinterest no matter where they are. 80% use it on mobile, and more people are mobile-only users for Pinterest than for Facebook and Twitter. So what that means is that when someone's in a store, they're using Pinterest. When I'm at the grocery store, I'm looking at my recipes to see what I needed to buy. They're looking to see if they can find something like what they've saved. So you want to make sure that your products are saved by them. A pin can last forever. So if you have ever been frustrated by how quickly your hard-written social updates and beautiful photos disappear on Twitter, or you feel like no one's seeing your Facebook updates, this is not the case with Pinterest. So half the site visits that happen take place 3.5 months after you first pin something. It can be even more than that depending on how far your pin goes. And if we're looking at orders that happen, half the orders take place 2.5 months after you pin. So what you pin today is really going to continue to grow. So you need to kind of consider it as an investment in the future, not just something that will disappear. It's supported by a quote from Pinterest talking about how most of the activity happens on other networks within the first 24 hours, but on Pinterest it continues to grow. And here's one of our tips, which was one of our key takeaways. Publishing consistently over consecutive months is the best way to build a dedicated audience. Dedicated audience translates to traffic and sales. Notice that though, consistently over consecutive months, when you go into Pinterest marketing, realize that it is going to take longer than you want, right? Because we want it to work today. But again, unlike other networks where the most reach happens in the first 24 hours, your reach is going to continue to grow as you continue to create great content and pin consistently. So let's look at our profile and what we can do to make the most of that. And we know most people are searching, not browsing our profiles, but it is still important. Some things we need to do to give ourselves the best chance at success are to get our account in order. And I don't want you to stop and do this now, but if you check your registration email or if you go to this bit.ly link, bit.ly Perfect Fit freebies, it's going to walk you through how to do all these things and make sure they're set up for you. So making sure you have a business account. Pinterest is very interested in rewarding content creators. So they've given us things like analytics that personal accounts don't have. You have access to promoting pins. You have a special profile that helps you stand out more. And it also allows you to claim your website. Claiming your website is really important because Pinterest wants to see that you're creating content on that website and will reward you for that. And you can also apply for rich pins, and we'll talk about why that's so important for online sellers in a few minutes. Actually, we'll talk about it right now. So rich product pins, they actually look at your website and they pull the information from your website. So rather than having to write the description yourself, it's going to pull it right from your product description. The advantage to this is that it makes it easier for you to show up in this product pin search. So when someone's on Pinterest and they click this little drop down, they can select product pins. You're going to see a lot of product rich pins there. Another great thing about product rich pins is that when you update the details on your website, say it's out of stock, or you change the description, or you change that price changes across Pinterest. So it's a great way to make sure you don't have outdated information out there on Pinterest. And it's a cue to people that they can actually do something with this pin. It's actionable, right? These are wonderful ideas. These are things you can actually buy. So we have those product-rich pins, but there are also buyable pins, which means that your pinners can buy from you without ever leaving Pinterest. All they have to do is enter their payment and shipping information once onto Pinterest, and then it is all too easy just to add your product to their bag and then check out. You'll see this little bag icon if you look in the upper right-hand side of my profile. It has 2 items in it. This one here, the sunglasses, I added that about a year ago, and I could still check out now if I wanted to. These are great. Pinterest does not take a cut of your sales. They are only available, though, if you are using Shopify or BigCommerce as your platform. Keep an eye for more platforms offering this as well, though, because it's a great way to facilitate sales right on Pinterest. We've talked a lot about how to get traffic to your site, and we will talk more about it. But there are some things you're going to want to do to your website to make sure that it is also working for you on Pinterest. Those are other things you can find in this Download the Perfect Fit freebies bit.ly link or in your email. But adding the Pinterest share button will encourage people to share from your website. That's actually encouraging people to do some of your marketing for you. That's a great thing to do. You also can use a special sharing plugin like Social Warfare, which will allow you to have a Pinterest optimized image and description kind of hidden inside of your blog post or your product listing so that people can then share to Pinterest that specific image. That is for WordPress. And then make it easy for people to follow you by using the pin widget builder. So you can use that widget on your website. You can take screenshots of it to include in your emails to encourage people who already know, like, and trust you to follow you on Pinterest. And then when it comes to Pinterest image descriptions in the background, you want to keep your Google alternate text appropriate for Google, right? And then your Pinterest description is a separate thing. So you can use WP Tasty to do that. Again, don't do it now. You can come back to that later. But something that's really important are keywords, right? Because Pinterest is a search and discovery engine, keywords are very important. So you probably have your keywords for Google, for your content creation. That's wonderful, but they're probably not exactly the same as what you want to use on Pinterest. So as an illustration, we've taken the base keyword home decor. Type it into the Pinterest search bar, and Pinterest will give you some suggestions of related terms. If you type it in and hit enter, that's when this guided search comes up with these blocks underneath, which will show you that, you know, kind of in relation to the word home decor, people are searching for on a budget, DIY, living room. These are things you can use when you are writing up all things Pinterest. Another way to find keywords that Pinterest says are popular on the platform is to go and create an ad. We're not actually going to run this ad, but instead you're going to set up a test campaign, a test ad group. And once you get to this step number 2, you can enter in your base keywords into this extend your reach box, and it will suggest some keywords to you that might be helpful for you to use. I like to hit the little plus on all these buttons so that they show up on the left. You just copy them and paste them into your keyword list. You're going to use that all along Pinterest, but one of the first places you're going to use it is when you're creating your profile. So Flyaway Blue Jay, they were featured in a Pinterest success story. You can use your keywords pretty much anywhere on Pinterest, right? So it could be Flyaway Blue Jay, and then you could have like a dash, and then use some of your keywords. So if their keywords are uniquely curated shop or uniquely curated vintage pieces, absolutely, you could use that in your Pinterest name, and make sure your top keywords are included here. They are a business account, you can tell because they have this cover image here. That's one way Pinterest differentiates us. They've also claimed their website. Now, it can be difficult to decide what you want to put here for your image. This one works well for them because their logo fits in so nicely style-wise with their actual pins. So that works great for them. A really important place to use your keywords is going to be on your boards themselves. The first thing to think about when creating your boards is the content that you create. Okay, so that could be either your product listings or your blog posts. Whatever content you're creating, think about that first. Not so much trying to appeal to your followers with everything they're interested in, but more focusing on you. So every account should have one board that has all of their own pins on it. But rather than using just a branded term like Flyaway Blue Jay, we would want to use our keywords first. So maybe unique vintage clothing and accessories, Flyaway Blue Jay. Maybe that kind of encompasses everything that their content is about. So think about that when you're creating your main board. All of your pins are going to go in there eventually. But then think about the supporting and more niche board titles that you're going to need. So they sell women's wear. So they might have a board called Unique Women's Wear, right? That was one of their top keywords. And that would include pins for their women's wear, plus curated unique women's wear inspiration. Okay, so the reason there's an asterisk next to all these curation ideas is that it's possible that you create so much content that you never have to pin anybody else's. Possible, unlikely, right? Because we all need to be active pinners. So you may want to share other people's content as well. Another advantage to sharing other people's content is that in your Pinterest analytics, you're going to be able to see which content is doing really well, right? So which pins were really engaging to your audience, to your followers. When you do that, it gives you insight into what kinds of pins, what kind of content you should be creating, because it will work well for you also. Now, it's also nice to just share the love on Pinterest. Maybe you have somebody you want to support, so definitely curate their content as well. But all of the boards that you create are going to be with your content in mind first. Board descriptions. They do matter. So if you were to do a search on Pinterest for women's wear and you were to filter it out by boards, you might see that the top results have no description in them. So you might conclude then that board descriptions don't matter. That's not true, though. They do matter, not so much because people will come and read it. Remember, we talked about the fact that Pinterest is a search engine. People are not really browsing. But instead, it's because of all those signals that Pinterest looks at. So they are looking at your Pinterest name. They are looking at your board titles. They are looking at your board descriptions, and then the pins inside of them to figure out where to show your content in search. So that description is going to go with your pins. What does that mean? We'll get to that in a minute. Board sections. You might have seen this on boards. So someone might have, say, a jewelry board, and then they might split it up by a section for rings and one for necklaces and another one for bracelets. They are starting to play into SEO for Pinterest, but they're not any more helpful than having separate boards for each. So in that illustration, the person would instead just have a whole board for necklaces, a whole board for bracelets, a whole board for earrings. So it really doesn't make any difference as far as SEO goes if you want to go sections or different boards. Board sections were really created for our own use so that we could sort through our own boards. You might find it helpful to have a secret board. Maybe you want to have competitor inspiration, for example. You might have a secret board, and then you'll have a section for holiday ideas or promotion ideas, and that is really helpful for you to find your own content, but not quite as helpful for people who are looking for yours. Okay, so this was one of the highlights of my career so far, talking to the head of product marketing for Pinterest, Sarah Hupelshire. We had an hour-and-a-half conversation on Facebook Live about all things Pinterest. We got to ask all the questions that I had ever wanted to ask, and it was wonderful. But what came out of it was a huge amount of information for content creators like you. So what we learned is that Pinterest wants your content. Right, we talked about this already. They favor active creators. Aim to create new content weekly. Pin consistently, daily if possible. Of course, if you're using a scheduler like Tailwind, pinning consistently daily is definitely possible. Okay, and then this came from an email from Pinterest saying to claim your website, create pins daily to grow the reach of your content on Pinterest. All things telling us exactly how to succeed on Pinterest. When you create a new piece of content, so blog post, product listing, save your fresh content right away. Pinterest loves that fresh content, and because you have claimed your website, Pinterest makes that connection. They know it's yours, and they will give you priority distribution. If you have been repinning your own content, stop. And here's why. The reason why is that Pinterest knows it's yours, right? So Pinterest really wants to see when you publish content, how do your followers react? How are they engaging with it? If your followers don't engage with it, Pinterest decides that, well, this probably isn't the greatest content and maybe doesn't deserve to show up at search very, very far and wide, right? So some of us as marketers thought, well, if I repin my own content, Pinterest wants to see those repins, they'll decide that my content is good and they'll show it more. But again, Pinterest knows it's your content. So only pin your content fresh from your website. When you pin from Tailwind, it's always a fresh pin. Repin other people's content, encourage other people to repin your content, but freshly pin your own content. What is fresh content? So the freshest of the fresh might be a new blog post, a page, or a product listing with a new image. Next might be a new image or pin description for an existing blog post, page, or product listing. Next, still fresh, is a pin that's freshly pinned from a site or scheduled. And last would be, or not fresh at all, is a repin of an existing pin. Again, repin other people's content if you want to. We want other people to repin our content, but we want to freshly pin our own content. Something a lot of people wonder about is it okay to pin my pin more than once and to multiple boards? Yes, it is. You want to save to the most relevant one first. So if you remember when we were looking at the different boards we would create for our own content, we had that one board that would have all of our content. It was kind of a general board encompassing our best keywords, and it would have everything on it. Then we had our boards like unique women's wear. So if I have a new dress listing, where am I going to put that first? I'm going to put it on my unique women's wear. All right, so here's an example of a vintage white woven bag from Fly White Blue Jay. They are going to save it first to their vintage women's accessories. That is the most relevant board they have. Now, if you find you're creating content or adding products and you don't have a board for that a board that's super relevant to it, create that board. It's worth it. The second board they would pin to is unique vintage clothing and accessories, Fly White Blue Jay. That's their main board. That's where everything goes. But they would not pin it to vintage home decor ideas. Here's the reason. When you're pinning your own content, the first place you pin to women or vintage women's accessories is going to follow that pin around, right? So that board title, that board description, and that pin are all connected on Pinterest. You saved it there first. It's your content. Pinterest says, okay, these are all my clues about what this content is. If I were to have saved that to that second board first, it's still applicable, but there's a little bit of a mixed message. Is it clothing? Is it accessories? Whereas if we save it to that vintage women's accessories first, it's very obvious. We could do even better if we had a board for vintage women's bags. If we were to save it to vintage home decor ideas, Pinterest now has some really mixed signals about what is this pin? How should it be displayed in search? So don't try to pin it where it doesn't belong, but make sure you have plenty of boards that give your content multiple homes where they really fit on Pinterest, and that can give Pinterest a signal, many signals about what your content is really all about. That is how you're going to do well in search on Pinterest today. Another way you can make your content go really far on Pinterest is to create more than one pin per post, trying different styles, even different sizes of images that will appeal to more than one person. So this content here, creating new, fresh images, this is fresh content. And ideally, you could be creating blog posts every day or new products every day, but creating new images takes a lot less time. It can help you learn a lot about your audience. What kind of style does appeals to them? What kind of style results in conversions on your site? And it just gives you a chance to be seen a lot more. When you're doing this, either creating new images or pinning the same images over again, make sure you give them unique descriptions. The reason for that, of course, is Pinterest is all about search. So if in our first example, we're concentrating on vintage style and freshwater pearl earrings and graduation gifts, that's one set of keywords. In our second example, we're talking about elegant, wedding jewelry, evening, right? Chic. We're using different hashtags as well. This is how we get found in multiple searches for the very same item. Speaking of descriptions, they do count. You should make your descriptions compelling and actionable. So if your objective is to drive clicks, use a description copy to kind of hint that there's more to see on your website. And again, make sure it's unique for each pin. A strong call to action like shop, make, find, or buy will encourage people to take the next steps when they get to your site. What about hashtags? For a long time, hashtags were a no-go on Pinterest. They were confusing. They kind of distracted from your pins. They didn't work the way we thought they would. But now they do. And Pinterest says use up to 20 relevant hashtags. Again, always being relevant. Give Pinterest clear and honest signals about what your content is, and then your pins can show up in the hashtag search. You'll see them in your feed, and people can discover your content that way. How many pins should you pin per day? There really is no upper limit of what's acceptable. As long as you are pinning quality content, go crazy. But you don't have to either. 5, 10, 12, even just one a day is enough to keep you active. Why pin other people's content? Well, you may have heard this 80-20 rule or 20-80 rule, depending on the expert involved. And the idea of that is that you would only share a little bit of your own content and mostly of someone else's so you don't look spammy. This is not a thing on Pinterest. Maybe it was at one point. It's definitely not now. But there is something to be said for a community, right? So you may have friends that you want to support. You may have complementary businesses you want to support. And it may be that you just can't create enough fresh content to be pinning all the time. And you don't want to be pinning all of your stuff in a repetitive way. So it may be necessary to pin other people's content. We kind of went into this a little bit, but I wanted to bring your attention to this calendar that Pinterest created. It's called the Pinterest Possibilities Planner. Say that 10 times fast. You could get it at that bit.ly link right there, because no matter how early you're planning, you probably need to plan earlier. And you don't want to get in a situation where it's August and you're thinking about Christmas and then you realize that you haven't written anything and people are already pinning Christmas. It's too late. So get that planner and allow that to help you plan your content and your pinning strategy. All right. So we do want followers on Pinterest, and we want Pinterest to recommend us. So they have given us the secret to how to get recommended. Have a business profile, claim your website, pin consistently, and create new content weekly. That's what Pinterest wants to see from you, and that way they will give you followers. Well, they'll suggest you to followers. And followers actually do matter. As much as we wish maybe that it didn't if we're starting out, don't worry, you'll get there though. But it's not the number, and that is the good news for many of us. So let's just talk about this for a minute, because this is a super important point. Followers matter because Pinterest shows your fresh pins, your new pins to your followers first. They're not aware of it. They can see them either in the Smart Feed or in the Following tab. The Smart Feed is where you land by default when you go to Pinterest for the first time in a session. So what happens is Pinterest looks to see how your followers are reacting or engaging with these pins from you. If they're not engaging, Pinterest then may determine that, well, this isn't that great content, really. And your pins may not get too much further than your followers, where there's a potential to be shown to millions of followers. That's why it's so important to grow an authentic following on Pinterest built around your content. So let me just say that again. It's important to grow an authentic following on Pinterest that is built around your content. So let's say I sell vintage jewelry, but I want to draw in more followers than maybe just interested in vintage jewelry. So I think, well, everybody likes recipes. I'll pin recipes. Well, you may get a lot of followers, but the thing is, they're going to eat it up. Oh, no pun intended. I really didn't mean to. When you share a recipe. But then when your beautiful new earring collection comes out and you share some of that on Pinterest, there is going to be no reaction, no engagement, or very little. And Pinterest will then conclude, well, this is not engaging content. It really doesn't belong in search. So building an audience that engages with your content is key to unlocking that further distribution. You can do this by reaching out to people who already are interested in you. You already have these opportunities. So put the Pinterest follow button on your website. Put a Pinterest follow widget on your website. Mention it in your emails. So if you have a new blog post come out or a new product come out, you could say, want to see more like this? They're all on this board. You can take a screenshot of your board widgets. Remember, that's in the email or also in that download you can get to show people what is on that board. Put that in your email. On Facebook, remind people that you're on Pinterest. You could even have a weekly feature that says, this is our most pinned product of the week. And also mention it on Instagram. If you have 10,000 followers and you have that story link option, link to a Pinterest board. Otherwise, just from time to time, remind people of what they can find on your Pinterest account. These are the people who are going to be your most engaged followers. And that is how you're going to get your content distributed beyond your follower base, because Pinterest knows, great, engaging content, I'll share it with more people. Shifting gears now a little bit towards what exactly we're pinning. Our giraffe friend is a little sad, a little perturbed, and the reason why is because it used to be that really tall pins, Pinterest calls those giraffe pins now, did great on Pinterest. They took up a lot of room on the screen, and they would get shared like crazy. Well, Pinterest has determined that that's not necessarily the best user experience. So your pins that are really tall may be seeing less and less distribution. So the official recommended ratio is 2 to 3. So your pin should be basically 1.5 times taller than it is wide. It doesn't have as much to do with size as it does with that ratio. But a good minimum for that would be 600 by 900. It's the same thing as 735 by 1102 or 2000 by 3000. But just keep it around that ratio, or you may find that your pin gets cut off in the feed. So they're missing important information, or it may not even display at all in certain places, maybe search, maybe mobile, or could be related pins, but they're really not in favor of the giraffe pins. Sorry, Guy. About pins themselves, they should be actionable and inspiring. So that's what people want from Pinterest. And here are some really good examples here. You can do it with images and text, like Stitch Fix did, or you can do it with just the image and the description like we see on the right. Again, these should be actionable and inspiring. You want to use lifestyle shots whenever possible. So a lifestyle image would be your product in action. Someone can imagine this in their own lives, like this example from Joanne on the right, as opposed to a napkin ring. Right, those two products themselves aren't really that different. You can imagine if we took the one on the left and put it in that image on the right, it would actually look really, really good. But as it is on the left, just the product shot is not very appealing. I'm very unlikely to save that, and I'm certainly not likely to be inspired to buy. You want to skip the amateur shots, right? So we have some pretty good contrast here. And really, there's not a whole lot of work difference to go into these, right? This one's just very tidy and clean, has a little text on the image, has some white space. This one here just looks messy. Nobody really wants to have that in their bedroom. Remember, think about what people go to Pinterest for. It is to be inspired, to try something new, to improve their life in some area or another. Then we have this fashion shoot over here. This one, it looks like maybe a cell phone image with very little thought to setup, lighting, or anything. This one, the bigger one here, 44 trendy back to school outfit ideas. You know what? That could be from a smartphone as well. But they thought about the background, they thought about white space, and they thought about really focusing on the product itself as opposed to all this background stuff. We want to keep our pins beautiful and inspiring, right? So this look here, how to look slimmer with clothes, that's something women can aspire to, right? As opposed to avoiding looking older and fatter. It's just a mindset shift. This older and fatter thing may work on Facebook, but that's not what people go to Pinterest for. Similarly with this how to create a bold and modern office space, beautiful photo, and it's an inspiring idea, right? I can do this. I can create this, as opposed to your cubicle doesn't have to be ugly. When you're creating images, test. Right, so this is a test that a friend of mine did, and well, I already gave away which one did better, but let's think about why that might be. So we have some nice subtle branding on here, but she might be overdid it a little bit by having it in the corner and on two products. Over here, it's two products, which really allows this call to action to stand out more. Find your focus. We all know what that means. We could all use a little more focus in our lives. Whereas say hello to flow. What is that? Why would I say hello to flow? Ingredients for a better day. Well, yeah, focus, creativity, energy, those are good, but I'm having to get to the end of it before I know what you're talking about. Also, this text is a bit small. Think about how it's going to look on mobile. This was her clear winner. Also, if you notice different words do better on your images, those might be better words to use in your description as well, and she found that to be the case too. So here's a pin that I like to use an example because it has kind of everything Pinterest suggests. So it has some subtle branding with the logo and name here, it has plenty of white space, doesn't make it feel too crowded. We have professional photography, multiple items. We have kind of a lifestyle setting, a very strong start your registry today call to action, and some helpful text on your image. If I could change one thing on this, I would just take out why register like you are, join 500,000 couples. It's just tiny, right? So if you saw this on your phone, you probably wouldn't be able to read this. But I still like this one because even if you don't read that bit, it's still a great, great pin. So where are you going to get images? If you are a reseller, you can get them from your manufacturer often. You probably don't want to use them as they are. You probably want to crop and get creative with how you lay them out. Obviously, it's better if you can take your own images. You can get images from Unsplash and Pexels. May not be super helpful for an online retailer to be using stock images, right? So you're probably going to want to go with your manufacturer or use your own. The one place you never want to get images is from somebody else, but you knew that. So it doesn't matter when I pin. Yes, it matters when you pin, right? Because we want our followers to engage. That means we have to be pinning when our followers are using Pinterest and likely to engage. So if I'm looking at my following tab here. It's showing basically in reverse order of when people pinned. So if I happen to come on an hour from now, I might miss these as they get moved down. So it is important to try to pin when your followers are on. And that is something Tailwind is really, really good at. Analyzing your content, your followers, and suggesting, okay, your followers are on and they are active and engaging at this time. Here's when you should pin. Very helpful. You can also use video pins on Pinterest. This is kind of a new thing. And the suggestions are to take up as much of the screen space as possible, making sure that your videos are either square or portrait oriented. If you creating videos to help with awareness, which you might be, create shorter videos. If you're going to teach someone how to use something, like use one of your products in a project maybe, you can absolutely go longer for that. But no matter what you're doing, make sure that your message still works even if they don't turn the sound on, because it's not turned on by default. Something that some Pinterest marketers have advocated for a long time is deleting pins. Why would you delete a pin? Well, you might delete a pin if it's not engaging. Remember we talked about how Pinterest wants to see that our followers are engaging with our pins? The thing that is, though, that because our followers see those pins pretty quickly, by the time our followers haven't engaged with a pin, Pinterest already knows it's not engaging. So long story short, it is not a good use of time to go back and delete old pins. Another reason you wouldn't want to delete older pins is sometimes it actually does take a while for a pin to take off in the search. So if you delete it too soon, you're missing that opportunity. Now, especially with online retailers, it might be the situation where you have a product that's no longer available. If you were to delete that pin from Pinterest, you have to remember that that pin maybe has been out there a little while, and people have been saving it or repinning it to their own boards for weeks, months, maybe years. So there could be thousands of repins out there. So deleting just your version of it isn't going to do much. So instead, either redirect the page on your website to another page on your site with similar products, or edit the page itself and make a note of where they can find other similar items so that that traffic coming to that page isn't wasted. A question a lot of people have had is, do third-party programs hurt your reach on Pinterest? The reason that comes up so often is because there's been an ongoing debate about whether using third-party schedulers hurts your reach on Facebook. I still don't know where we land on that, but I do know the situation with Pinterest because I asked. No, there's no need to pin manually. Third-party programs, which are Pinterest-approved marketing partners such as Tailwind, will not hurt your reach on Pinterest. And in fact, it can help for the reasons we discussed, which are pinning consistently, pinning when your followers are most likely to be engaged. So then, wouldn't Pinterest really like you to be active on their site? Wouldn't they like you to be following? Wouldn't they like you to be creating new boards and using new features? Wouldn't they reward that activity by sending people to your profile or by sharing your pins more? No, no, they wouldn't. I asked Sarah at Pinterest directly. No, they don't. They don't notice that. All they notice is whether you are being active or not. Being active through a scheduler is active. So there's no need to ever pin manually if you don't want to. Now, that said, the best way to remain an effective Pinterest marketer is to be able to put yourself in the mindset of the average pinner. So definitely use Pinterest as a pinner. Even if you think you don't want to, try to find some area of interest that you can just start collecting pins and notice what it is about that image or that description that makes you want to save it. That will help you improve your marketing, but there's no technical reason you need to be using Pinterest natively. Again, that consistent activity is better than a once-a-week flurry, so spread out your pinning using a schedule. So that brings us to tools and tips for pinning and image creation. So tools that a lot of pinners like to use for creating images, creating that text on images or collages are Adobe Spark, Canva, Photoshop. A lot of people use PicMonkey as well. You do not have to be a designer. You could have someone create templates for you. So even if you are just going to use Canva, you could have someone go into your Canva account and create those templates. There are templates in there. You want to be careful about using those templates exactly as they are, because you may have noticed that sometimes you'll see pins and you know you've seen exactly that look before. Make it a little bit different for you. If you are going to use stock images or images from your manufacturer, change the zoom, change the angle, some way to make it a unique image for you, because you don't want to be looking like everybody else on Pinterest. If, on the other hand, you have a lot of great product images, but they're all horizontal, you can stack them and combine them with text to make a nice pinnable image. Now we get to Pinterest advertising. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but I know a lot of people want to know, when is a good time to promote a pin? Do I need to wait until I've been active on Pinterest a while before I promote a pin? Nope. There are some people who only use Pinterest for advertising. So the time to promote a pin might be when you create content that's already in season. So let's say it's November or even October, and you have something great coming out for Christmas season. It may be hard to get that pin out and seen in time for all the activity you'd like. So rather than waiting for next year, you may want to promote or advertise that pin. It will just get it in front of more people who are interested. You'll want to promote when a page converts to sales or a page converts to leads, and you know how to track that. So ultimately, the best thing would be is if you know, okay, from people who come to my site from Pinterest, this page converts really, really well, right? So if you know one page or a product has a great conversion rate, you could definitely promote that. But it's even better if you know that, particularly from Pinterest, this product really converts well. Or if you don't really want to invest a lot of time in organic Pinterest for months to tell if Pinterest will work for you, it can, by the way, just so you know. But perhaps you have other forces at work. Perhaps you have business partners who want to know, is Pinterest going to work for me? Using promoted pins is a way to kind of speed that process up, finding out how it's going to work for you. So if you are going to use Pinterest advertising or promoted pins, take advantage of audience targeting. So you can read more about that at that link. But basically, Pinterest will allow you to upload a list of your customers. It will allow you to target people who've been to your website or just to one page on your site or to certain pages on your site. You can target act-alike audiences of those people. You can even target people who have engaged with any pin that goes to your site, no matter who pinned it. The audience targeting on Pinterest is kind of its secret weapon. That engagement targeting is something that's not available on any other platform. So definitely start there. That's where your most effective conversions are going to come in. Set up all the tracking that you can. Even if you're thinking today, well, I don't want to use Pinterest advertising. Set up your base code today, and that way Pinterest can access visitors to your website. If in a couple of months you decide, I want to advertise, I want to target those people on my site, it has that data for you already. Conversion events are wonderful for you e-commerce sellers because you can then track people who have purchased, people who have added to cart, all kinds of actions that will then allow you to target your ads even more effectively. Let them run. Let them run twice as long as you think you need to. So if you're running Facebook ads, you might need to run it at least twice as long on Pinterest to know if it's going to work. And the reason for that is because the conversions take a bit longer to come in, but then they keep coming in for longer after that. Number one question about promoted pins or advertising on Pinterest is, what should I pay? It's going to be different for everybody, but here is a place to start. If you take the value of your sale or lead, let's say it's $40, if you know the conversion rate of their page or your product, And ultimately, it would be great if we knew the conversion rate from Pinterest traffic. Let's say it's 1.5%. That means it takes 67 clicks to get one sale. So then a website visit is worth 59 cents. Now, Pinterest has changed the way that promoted pins work so that instead of clicking and getting to a close-up like you do with an organic pin, as soon as someone clicks on your pin, it takes them right to your website. So there's going to be a little bit of a bounce rate going on. So generally speaking, you want to try to bid about a third of what a website visit is worth to you. You're going to want to play with this, of course, and test it out, see what works for you. At 19 cents may not be competitive for what you're bidding for, but that's kind of just a place you can start. Also keep in mind that the value of a click has to do with more than just ultimate sales, right? So as you're building these clicks in, you're also getting email signups, which you can then turn into sales later. You're also building more retargeting audiences to make future conversions more effective and affordable. Let's just briefly review everything that we learned today. Key is to create content weekly. You can make your content go further by creating more than one pin for each piece of content. Make sure that you pin to the most relevant board first, but do pin to every relevant board that you have. Use your Pinterest keywords in everything. Think about search. Think about that connection between your board titles, your board descriptions, your pins, and the content on your website. Inspire pinners with your beautiful images and descriptions that are actionable and let people picture your product in their life. Engage your followers. When Pinterest sees that your followers are engaging with your pins by saving them or clicking on them, Pinterest will reward you with content distribution. Pin consistently. Pin every day rather than just a flurry once a week or so. Promote strategically. So if you need your content to get out quickly to a targeted audience, consider using Pinterest ads. Just looking at some of the results, comparing those who used Tailwind as Plus Plan members compared to those who didn't upgrade from the free trial, we found that those who used the Plus Plan got 3.7 times more followers added than those who did not. And of course, we want those engaged, authentic followers. They published 4.2 times more pins than non-members. Pinterest wants us to be active, remember? Here's the most impressive one to me. Tailwind members got 6.9 times more saves or more engagement than non-members. Remember, this is a signal that tells Pinterest that your content is worth distributing. So go ahead and claim your 2 months free so that you can take advantage of everything that Tailwind has to offer. If you want more information on making Pinterest work for your e-commerce business, you can go to blog.tailwindapp.com or bit.ly/tailwindyoutube. You can also follow us on Facebook, where we have regular Facebook Lives, sometimes even with representatives from Pinterest. Thanks for being here.